continue to watch our events page at the Eastside Freedom Library website, because there are going to be more of these coming up as the weather has gotten nice. And so please go to eastsidefreedomlibrary.org, and you will be able to check out all the things that we have going on. Also subscribe to our newsletter and make sure to not miss anything. As I said, tonight we have some members of the Brownbody company who are going to be having a show called Sacred Steps, Sacred Steps. They always want to call it the Charles Schultz Arena, but the Highland Arena, sort of toward our, not quite the end of Snelling Avenue, almost to the end, but Snelling and Ford Parkway, yeah. So Ford Parkway sort of ends in their parking lot. Yeah, so we're here to talk about the show, talk about being Black and skating on ice. Deneane wanted me to mention, well, all of us to mention our connection to Brownbody. I'm not connected with the show. I don't have that particular kind of talent, but I have had a great time teaching ice skating at a couple of places here in town through the Learn to Skate program. So at some point, there'll be some more sessions. People should come and learn how to skate, especially the young people, but older people too. I just want to say falling on ice is much better than falling on pavement or anything like that. When you fall, you slide. So it's all okay, it's all good. But we have helmets just in case. So Deneane Richburg is the artistic director. Is that your only title there? Because you do a lot more than that. Okay, yeah. Artistic executive. Yes, yes, we're learning. This is our first event outside this year, so we're all learning this. But I'm going to pass the mic to you and maybe talk about why Brownbody and maybe a little bit about the show, and we will have everyone else join in. And,
thank you so much. And yeah, thank you, Clarence. Thank you, Peter. Thank you for having us. It's always exciting to cultivate relationships with other like-minded and similarly similar mission entities. So thank you for, thank you for this. This is great. So Brownbody, we were informally established in 2007 when we got our 501c3 in 2016. And it really came to be as a result of my experiences growing up in the overwhelmingly white world of competitive skating. I grew up in Maplewood, Minnesota, was a competitive skater here in the Twin Cities for almost 20 years. And I ended up actually injuring my knee, my right knee, which is, typically skaters jump and they land their jumps on, one, typically. I do know a few ambidextrous skaters that are jumping both ways all the way, but they land on one, the same leg on one leg. And for me, it was my right leg. I injured my right leg. I could not continue to train and jump the way that I would have needed to in order to remain competitive. But all throughout my competitive career, I was told sometimes very explicitly, sometimes subversively, that my Blackness was not okay in the ring. From comments about the darkness of my skin to being told that literally I did not have the right look. All of these things, really sent a very clear message that I was not, people did not think that I should be skating. And so as I grew up and stopped competing, I went on and did a MFA in dance and choreography. I also had the really wonderful opportunity to work with Punker McGee at Pangea and Lou Bellamy at Penumbra, and really got to see how in so many different theater circles,
stories are visually crafted. And so I opted to go ahead and pursue my MFA in dance and choreography so I could really learn composition. And I was really interested in like, how do I engage the body in visual storytelling? And how do I bring honest and nuanced narratives rooted in Blackness to the ice? And so I had the good fortune of being able to do my thesis for my MFA program on the ice. I had the amazing Stephen Smith in that performance, and I was kind of just off the races after that. I received really wonderful feedback, and it became clear that working on the ice and doing this, very layered, complex storytelling that is rooted in Blackness was a viable option. And so Brownbody was formed informally in 2007, and we got our 501(c)(3), and we've been presenting artistic work pretty consistently almost every other year. As Clarence mentioned, we also have a donation-based learn to skate program, and we have a method called embodied racial consciousness, which I'm sure we will talk about as we continue the conversation. I feel like I have been dominating the conversation at this moment, so I'm going to turn the mic over back to Clarence.
That's what you're supposed to do. I'm getting looks from, is that, never mind. So Stephen, I believe you're right with us today, the only other skater on the panel today. Is that correct? Yeah. I don't know, maybe you want to start maybe doing a couple of things, talking about your connection to the show. I think you've been sort of related to for a while. And also talk about your experience as a Black skater, showing up in that space.
How much time do you have? Well, my affiliation with Brownbody is like I did the very first show with her, and then I got invited back, and she'd already started a whole different program, and I'm pretty much retired from show skating, so I came out of retirement to do her show, and I was in a different place in my life, and so it's dance based, so I learned a different way of looking at things and movement, and then it was put on ice, and I learned how to skate again. So I'm kind of attached to all this because of that, because it's changed my life. I learned how to skate in a different way, and I could just be. Because you can't just be normal in a lot of shows. And so I was given the freedom to think differently and skate differently, and given different perspectives and being taught how to use my body differently. And usually when you retire, you're done. And you're like, I ain't learning nothing new. I did fight it first, but still fighting. But what sunk in is amazing.
And the question is your relationship to Brownbody or the work?
Good evening. I'm Leela Aisha Jones, and I am the Associate Artistic Director for Brownbody. I live in Philadelphia, but who knows? I'll just put it like that. I'm in the Twin Cities quite a lot, and connected and feel more and more connected every time I come. I think it's been about 7 years since I've been working with Brownbody. But Deneane and I met in Philadelphia right after she received her graduate degree in dance. Oh, 9 years with Brownbody, 9 years with Brownbody. And Deneane and I had worked together on a couple of works. I had performed in one of her works, and then she performed in some of my works. Actually, got on Facebook. I was literally looking for Black people. I was on Facebook, like, let me find all the Black dancers in Philadelphia. And I think I say that in a funny way, but I think I should say a little bit more about why that was important to me. I think that artistic spaces are really intimate spaces. their home, their family. And I really needed a group of skaters who had been through a particular experience. Black folk there's all kind of Black folk. There's not one kind of Black folk. Let me say that. And I really wanted to bring forth, even though there's a lot of kind of Black folk, there are some things that cross. And I think I was hopeful that not only the difficult things cross culturally, but also the joy and the holding each other and the care. And you kind of, sometimes you can't create that kind of space if people don't understand. This is what, 2008, 2009? You can't kind of create that space if people are not all on the same page about understanding that race exists. I think there was even some like bumper stickers that were at the time saying racism and just misunderstandings are post-racial, like that was the whole thing. Remember that? That was a whole thing that's not existing now. But I think Brownbody sort of continues the possibility of that for me. In addition to teaching me how to be a better teacher, my role is really to bring help all of us bring our authentic selves to the ice, to the performance, to dance, to people. So I spend a lot of time in the dramaturg world with everyone. I also spend a lot of time in the movement world and teaching African diasporic dance forms and Black social dance, or either learning Black social dance from everybody else, the ways that they learned it and know it. And so that's generally my role, but
Sorry, I'm just gonna say this for Leila. So I'll have an original vision for the artistic work. And as the process continues and more things get layered in and there are more things to contend with, oftentimes it's easy, at least for me, I'll stray from that original concept. And Leila makes sure that original concept doesn't get lost, which it has frequently. When Leila's not involved, usually it turns out being something completely different from what I originally had envisioned.
I believe in the vision. So I guess overall I serve as like an artistic vision companion.
Do you have a specific question for me or just relationship with Brownbody? Okay. Well, my name's Tomasina Petrus, and I came to Brownbody invited to do a piece, to sing to a piece that Leila was dancing to. And so it's almost, Feeling Good by Nina Simone. And it was since then, I don't want to get caught up in specifics as I'll talk a long time. But what I really love about working with Brownbody as a singer and an actor and a background, well, I should actually say a backpack, which is on my background, which is a little further removed, as a dancer, being able to use that sense of memory as a musician to create a narrative, a musical soundscape for the dances and for the pieces, and be able to create some poetry and prose and narrative stuff. I'm really kind of given great liberty to create wild thoughts. And then Leila is very good at also helping to really navigate those wild thoughts. And I love that Deneane and I, when we've met, just in the sort of incubation phase of some of the projects, we really can shoot for the moon, which is great, because when you can see it in your mind, even if it doesn't actually exist yet, it's nice to be able to start thinking about how it can. And that's what I love about Brownbody, because you've just never seen a lot of the stuff that we are doing and creating on ice ever anyway. So it kind of gives you no boundaries, which is wonderful. And for a musician like myself, who I wouldn't say it has trouble with boundaries musically. I love being boundless in music. Like as a jazz singer, my brain, I'll hear the melody line once, and then I'm already singing a secondary and tertiary line in my head or playing with it vocally. And that's kind of what happens with Brownbody in a way when I create stuff for them, whether I'm creating something that already exists or they're creating something from something that I've said or done first. So I love that about it. So I look forward to, where it's headed. And it's just such a, this is just such a needed organization. I mean, I'm in the art world in Minneapolis. I've been, a professional actor for over 30 years. I've grown up, my whole career has been built here, working with a lot of different mediums of art, a lot of different kinds of expressions of art. And this is the one really unusual, and it's the piece that was missing, I think, in a lot of ways in our community. What was that? But yeah, so I just, I don't know if that's a plug to support Brownbody, but it definitely is free, but it's just such a valuable tool. This way of expressing, oh, that's not what I want to say. What do I want to say? This way of engaging in conversation, it's kind of like the sugar to make the medicine go down. The skating and the beautiful bodies and stuff. When you see that on ice, you're absolutely mesmerized by it. And then when you realize what they're doing with it, I've just seen like grown men cry, like weep, just at seeing Steven on ice. I mean, I'm just gonna put it out there. I mean, you're one of my favorite skaters ever in the whole wide world. And that alone should get you to come see it, but it's true. You skate from the tips of your fingers to the tips of your toes. I've never seen anything like it. And you're a dancer. That's coming from the dancer in me, sees the dancer in you. I just love that. So I'm just gonna say it out into the world because you just gotta accept it. But anyway, I'm rattling on, but I'm just really proud to be here and be a part of this always. Yeah. I just wanted to really quickly talk about my first time. Deneane tries to explain this. We all talk about it. Deneane comes to you and she says, I just want to do some dance on the ice, on the skaters, and I want to talk about Black people. And you just kind of sit there like, okay, okay. Like, you can't quite fully process it until you're there. So come. But I remember the first time I walked into the arena, all the skaters were there. And I used to watch, skating competitions on, because I'm mostly a dancer. I guess soon to be a skater, they're gonna force me to. But I just remember the feeling that I had when I saw all those. I think at the time it was a wider, multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-racial cast. And I just remember stopping in my tracks, like just seeing all of them on the ice, because I just had never seen a person of color, Black face with skaters. And I mean, it sounds really simple, but it is magical. And then when you put all of the work and the energy and time that Deneane puts behind it, dedicating basically her life to this new genre, we've been calling it strawberry lemonade. It's the kind, you don't know what it is until you taste it. You hear it, but you don't know what it is until you get there and see it. So I want that experience for everyone. I want the experience for the skaters to have a space like this, because that was just, I grew up in a Black dancing school, Margot School of Dance in Tallahassee, Florida, and it really did change the perspective that I had of myself as a very young girl and what was possible. And even though some skaters might be coming to that experience later or learn to skate, some of them are coming to it now with you learn to skate, I do think it's going to transform the skating world. It already is. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, okay.
I mean, if you guys want to keep talking, I mean, not need to. But one thing that Leila said, there are all different kinds of Black people. And sometimes, I mean, there's this thing about colonization in this country, where you can often find more diversity within marginalized groups, because like whiteness is this thing that is about conformity to this particular idea, and an idea, frankly, of supremacy. And I know that sometimes being in all Black groups or seeing all BIPOC groups, the diversity is so much greater then even if you have that element of this influence that's trying to dominate. But I'm wondering how, I mean, you talked a little bit about this, but sort of how does that play into the creative process? I mean, maybe talk about that some more. And maybe all of you can, but I can imagine, you know, that there are a lot of things that you are constantly discovering as you're going through. I don't know who wants to start. This is like with my students. Can you say it again? Thank you for asking, because my students always don't. Not always, sometimes, but the looking like you're not making any sense. So, just like as people who are really different, how does that help the creative process? You all have different stories that are distinct from that dominant narrative that exists in this country. How does that help you create something that frankly, from what I've experienced, is fairly unique and remarkable? So I hope that helps a little bit. I mean, should I start? Leela, do you want to start up, or does
Well, for me, freestyle and improvisation are locations under which to see who people are. That's practice. That's a big wide thing, and it's practiced in a lot of different ways in a lot of different communities. But I've started to develop a method called mining, witnessing, and archiving, which is developed from the Southern Baptist Black Church. Mining, witnessing, archiving, mining like digging. Mining is sort of like testifying. Like you might have a subject matter that you need to sort through or bring forth. So I'm pretty much asking in practice that people embody that subject matter, or embody their relationship to it. I'm just trying to think of one thing. Okay, sanctuary, right? So we're working on sanctuary right now, or we're working on laying of the hands. So Deneane and I spent a lot of time talking through what laying of the hands is, and then brought that idea to the skaters, and how they might. We did a lot of work around touch and improvisation and reacting to touch. But for me, it comes deeply from Southern Baptist Black culture. And then also the witnessing comes from that. So if you're in church and, well, in the shout kind of church, hallelujah, the holiness Pentecostal kind of church where people dance and shout. If someone's testifying, you know, they've been through something, people don't just sit like this. People go, oh, I've been through that too. So they're having an embodied exchange with you. So each person, as they're mining and digging for this work, they also have a witness. So they have someone who is not talking to them or trying to write down in words what they're doing, but they're actually embodying the movement with them. And so then we come back to that to archive it and see what from that is possible to put into the work. But that really starts to get to people's individual relationships to these subjects. I actually think we're at the beginning. I mean, I don't think that's what you're going to see on Saturday. It's not going to feel like the beginning, but I still think the threshold that we're at right now is not like the sky's the limit. That's one of the ways that I think we try to bring forth each person's story. And the way that contributes to the work is sometimes it's really glorious and it's joyous. Sometimes it's conflict because people have different relationships with some of this stuff, and some of the subject matter is lynching and other things that are some people have really strong relationships with, and some people don't know it all. So that's where I would start. But it's a value of Brownbody to have people's voices in the room, no matter how hard it gets. It's like stay in the kitchen. Okay, you mad? Go out to that yard. Okay, come back. Let's put something together. You're gonna feel better. But it is this. You have to be able to hold the hard times and the beautiful times, because I think really care is paramount. That's one of Brownbody's values. It's not just about carrying people through the nice times where everybody feels fine. It's also about carrying yourself and others through the difficult moments. Transformation and growth is not easy, and this is definitely putting skating and dancing together is a transformative space.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I just, Leila said it, but we also spend a lot of time talking, building community, really understanding, and like for real, I've been in a lot of spaces where there's a lot of lip service. And 1 second everybody's like, oh, I love you, whatever. And then the next second it's inauthentic. It's just not real. People don't understand themselves enough to really cultivate a strong relationship or connection with somebody else. So we do spend a lot of time talking. And in these conversations, of course, as skating movement artists, skating dance artists, we bring with us our experiences. And everybody, I mean, although there are some similarities, I can tell you, Stephen's experience growing up as a Black skater is vastly different from mine. And those differences have helped form our thoughts and our perspectives and our understanding of not only ourselves, but, of skating in general. And so coming together to have these conversations and to bring our differences to these conversations really creates and adds a lot of layers to the artistic work and to the artistic process. Anybody else want to?
Well, yeah, and I can also like almost piggyback on what you said as part of my experience. But yeah, like my whole skating career is completely different than hers. I don't have the traumas I have with anything like that. I grew up in California, the Bay Area, and it's very diverse there. So I never experienced anything about, like, I've never had any bad racial scandals or having people make me feel bad or whatever. I just did my thing and that was it. So like coming in here and seeing that, like I get it, but like that's not my life. It's not what I know about skating. I don't have memories like that. And I've been skating for a long time. So I have 41 years I've been skating, and almost 30 as a professional. And so I've been there, done that, bought the t-shirt, the keychain, the rug, the mug, all that stuff. But yeah, when I first came here, the process, like Leila was saying, like, yeah, it was about skating, but like before I even did anything, you showed me pictures of like lynchings and told me a story about it and asked us how we felt about it. And then you played Strange Fruit and you asked us to, without words, but with our body, show us how that story made us feel. And then you feel the power, and then, you're done. You see the people's faces like, oh my God. You're like, you don't, like, that's when the light went on for me. It's just like how much you can make people feel without words, but with your movement. Cool.
Thank you. I want to make sure that we spend some time talking about the show. Maybe a few other things about its creation and yeah, and of course where, when, and putting the cast together and having these talented people involved. But yeah, maybe we should talk about the show specifically and where it came from and how it's developed and what we might see.
Yeah, thank you so much. So Tracing Sacred Steps. I started, so I realized that as a community, as so many different Black spaces that I found myself in, people are suffering, people are struggling. That's that is no surprise to anybody. And I've always felt that there's so much wisdom and richness and nourishment that our ancestors and the stories of our ancestors can offer. And I just in general feel like as a community, as a civilization, we rarely we do not really call upon our history enough to help inform and guide our present. And so I was compelled to really think about, okay, what are those practices? What are those rituals that my ancestors, that our ancestral lineage practiced and participated in to help nourish, heal, reclaim one's humanity, to really to make it through. And why aren't we using those same rituals today? In very broad terms. And so I was definitely always aware of ring shout, but I kind of dove into researching and trying to find some kind of imagery of ring shout, and I stumbled up, or no, I found out about a article or an essay written by Dr. Katrina Hazard. And Dr. Hazard Donald did a very, really, really beautiful job of illustrating the relationship between so many different West African traditions and ring sound. And she laid out kind of the purpose of ring shout, and that purpose being, again, reclaiming one's humanity, connecting to ancestors, coming together as a community, and those practices are the things that help people make it through. And at the time, Philando Castile had just been murdered. We were just dealing with brutality after brutality after brutality, and I see people kind of reeling from all of this, and I was like, okay, well, we have practices in our ancestral lineage to help us make it through. And so I also dug up some footage of the McIntosh County shouters. And just seeing how possible recreation of a ring shout, kind of the shape, what that actually looked like. And I saw that counterclockwise circle, and I was like, oh, when I skate on the ice, I jump counterclockwise. When I spin on the ice, I jump counterclockwise. This might lend itself really nicely to the ice. And so started to do some explorations. I did some explorations in Philly, and I look crazy. She has a video of it, but I do. But it just continued to grow, we were fortunate to do a co-presentation with the Walker Art Center, works in progress showing in 2019, and then the pandemic and everything paused, canceled, everything. But through that time, I continued to really think about the work, wrote grants like the wind, and here we are, able to actually present the full work, this weekend. But yeah, that's kind of how it came to be. I was also really interested um, in this kind of 2.0 iteration, really understanding the relationship between ring shout and rage and resistance. And what happens, like, to really honor the sacredness of our rage, of my rage. And what is that? What is that in me? I'm not the kind of person to go crazy and but that doesn't mean I don't still feel anger, that I don't still feel rage. And what is that? And how is that manifested? And what can those elements bring out bring my to my processing in my own rage, my own anger. Because even to this day, I think about I think about some of the things that happened as as I was a child, especially in the skating world, and I do still feel some kind of way. How do I process that now as an adult? How do I heal from that? How do I work to create, nourishing spaces for other folks that I can see are still going through it or that have gone through it? And how do we disrupt the narrative, really, the toxic and minimizing narrative around Blackness by coming together, by connecting to ancestors, by reclaiming our humanity. Last thing I'm going to say, sorry, I I was also deeply, deeply inspired. So y'all know, beloved, Toni Morrison's my favorite author, and beloved is forever, ever and always will be a wellspring of beauty, of complexity, of richness, of tragedy, of everything, of all of the multiplicity that I feel like characterizes Blackness. And so the Baby Suggs character, I think it's, all the characters are really instrumental, but Baby Suggs was one of the characters that really inspired me, especially as she would call people together. I mean, there's a ring shop in Beloved, and just, offering and inviting people to, I think she invites the men to dance, and she invites the children to laugh and play, and she invites the women to wail and to cry, and just to really be together as they are experiencing the fullness of their humanity. I think that's something that I'm sorry, it's Black folk, I don't feel like we really get to do. I feel like if there's so much toxicity and so many problematic narratives when a Black person is expressing, experiencing any kind of range of that emotion, that I feel like I have been told to act very calmly, to comport myself in a way where I'm, no sudden movements, no, to really, to just be very like put together and calm in order to be accepted and taken seriously. And so even to this day, being able to really be in the fullness of my humanity is something that I think about, and I kind of have to intentionally, put myself in the mindset where I feel free to do that. That was a lot, but I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, for me, tracing sacred steps is all those things, and it is a space for Black humanity. It's a space that's performed, but I think it's performed first for us. I mean, you can't perform humanity if you don't feel it. So, yeah, you can't perform humanity if you don't feel it. But I think that the two sections of tracing sacred steps are hunting rage resistance, and then the second section is sanctuary. And those two names really do speak to the humanity of Black folks. We do feel sanctuary. We don't always get to feel it in public, but we do feel that there are spaces for it. And I think tracing sacred steps is also about the kind of revivals of history that are not just about the negative aspects of history, but are also, like Deneane said, about the histories that saved us. What are the ways that we saved? What are the mysteries that we need to keep a mystery? What are the things that we need to bring forward? And I guess I say that because I just think Blackness is limitless and really uncapturable. It's uncodifiable. You cannot capture it no matter how much you try, which is why when you try or someone's life is taken, then all this other stuff comes out of Blackness, because you really can't kill it. And bless all the souls who have to leave us to go through that process. But for us to go through that process, but I don't really believe that. I don't really believe that we can be captured or held.
I guess one thing I'm wondering is, Stephen, you get to skate. You get to like let it all out on the ice. But the rest of you, I mean, I guess Tomasina, you get to perform. I mean, I know, when I played hockey, I was a goalie, and there's a lot of anxiety involved in that. And the thing that is the saving response to that is I get to go out there and be very physical, and that's how you can keep it from destroying me. But I'm wondering what it's like. It's like I've also in junior high and some high school been part of stage and stuff, and it's like you're wondering, is this going to go off? Is something going to go wrong? And you're sitting there, but you can't really like jump up and down and run around. You have to be very quiet. And, so like the two of you sort of have to sit there and watch. Oh, you are? Okay. Oh, sorry. Yes. But you get to work it out. I don't know, Tomasina, what does that experience like for you? I mean, you're more of a traditional performer than these guys. I don't know if that's an experience for you I mean, well, I don't know if it's anxiety. I'm talking about my anxiety and fear. Yeah.
I think again, because this is sort of a new way of performing and being able to use my voice and lend my voice as more of a partly as a background and partly as a supportive piece to the work, to the movement work. There's a safety in that, but also, I've been really fortunate with Leela's husband on creating a soundscape that's part of it is pre-recorded. And that allows me to do some really exciting things that Deneane sort of opened up the top of her head and was like, okay, so I want you to do this thing where you take these words and like create a thingy that goes like this, and then like warble it and like create a soundscape of scatting. And I'm like, what? Because usually I'm like, yes. But even sometimes I have no idea what this woman is talking about until you really just listen to her kind of like the emotion of what she wants is really clear, even when it's like there's excitement around the idea that you don't even know how to explain. I know what that feels like. And so to be in a room with another creative like that is so, oh gosh, it's so like the energy is so palpable. It's so explosive because then my mind's like, okay, I don't quite know what she means, but I'm gonna get in the studio. I'm just gonna do some crazy stuff. Okay. And so part of that was I was excited to do it, but then there's this thing, okay, so what is the crazy stuff I'm gonna do? Like, and then I had to get into the studio with my husband, who's very methodical. Like, okay, so what exactly are you gonna be saying? And I was like, I don't know. And he would say, well, what does Deneane want? And I'd say, I don't know. And he'd say, well, does she want you to like words? And I'd say, yeah. Does she want you to like make sounds? Yeah, all of that. He goes, all of what? So it's like even being able to try to relay her and my thoughts to a person that would then record it. I literally had to take my husband and go, push record. I'm just gonna start doing wild stuff. He's like, okay. And out of that came all kinds of weird stuff, scatting, screeching, screaming, the stuff that comes out of that her husband took and layered, made harmonies with, literally altered the voice and the soundscape of it. So my voice doesn't even sound human, it sounds like other things, and created this really sort of warped, it almost feels like an intestinal expression of what they're, you know what I mean? That's what it felt like. I just called our work intestines. Man, I'm so proud of myself. Yes, so my husband's name is Charles Petrus. He goes by Philly, local wonderful musician, producer in the reggae scene here. Alex Shaw out of Philadelphia, classically trained first, right? But a percussionist and just I mean, the soundscape is just incredible what he did with our ideas. And then on top of that, being allowed to create and alter some narration and actually kind of being encouraged to be a little bit more of a comic bird. I don't really, because I found myself going into a wormhole of checking and making sure that the things I was talking about didn't feel just recitational over this beautiful music or over their movements. I wasn't just, narrating something that was picked from a print page. And this is the piece that we talked about with the movement. I wanted it to be, because we've heard about it, and whether we want to like kind of let it in or just be like, okay, that's something that happened. The fact that Deneane wanted this piece on ice and this interpretation of this of this Minnesota piece of history and our history at large, how could I make it something more than just the facts of what happened? I really wanted to try to go in a little deeper so that when people see what she's done and what's being narrated as they move, there's something else that happens other than, oh yeah, this happened a long time ago. And there's more of a connection with the conversation that is so current now. Because it's not like we're repeating, but it feels like we're doing this thing with history. History's moving forward, but we are circling back to this thing we need to deal with within ourselves so that we show up in the world with more love and understanding for real. And so that's what I was trying to sort of insert into the words and be able to use a little bit of theater and change my voice and do things that were interesting enough to kind of shift the person experiencing the narrative because it's interwoven with ring shout. So I'm talking about this thing. It's just fascinating to see what's become of it, and that you guys allowed me that time to really find some really interesting things that I didn't even. For instance, I'm just gonna depart a little bit. Say I got caught in a wormhole of fact checking the dates on that stuff. I'm not a dates person. The thing is, I don't care that it's June 14th. It was a Monday. But like I actually called the writer of one of the few books on the Deneane Richburg, Michael Fido, and he's going to be coming to the show. I hope I can. But I contacted him because I wanted to fact check a few things. And some of the questions I asked, and the way I was asking them, he said, no one has ever asked me that. I've never thought about that before. And not to say that I just in the narrative or not, I don't think I did, but I can share it with you very quickly. One of the questions I had was, the photo that was taken, it was one shot, there weren't any other angles. And we see this picture of, it was made into a postcard. You see these people looking into the camera that was set up very quickly after the lynchings happened. And so one of the things that puzzled me is, are we looking at three fully deceased human beings? Or is there a possibility that we are looking at someone who might still be alive in that photo? Because I had went down the wormhole of, well, how long does it take for a body to actually expire from it? You know what I mean? So, and he was gobsmacked, and I thought he probably had answered this 1,000 times. So that was one of the things, is this idea. And then the other thing about the photo that was so interesting to me is that those people were so close, and I only saw a few hands, but the hands in the photo, they're holding something. And I'm trying to figure out, what are they holding? Because the bodies are saturated. And so these are the types of things that my wormhole mind goes into. And how do I, without getting too far off, I was able to really dig and find some interesting picadillos to insert that, in seeing them do this beautiful work, it forces you to have a conversation. That is the sugar for the medicine that we really need to get to, the real conversation we're supposed to have. Like everything else the world is doing, if it's not getting to the answer, and we know what the answer is, to me, is jazz hands. We need a study. When they came out with that study, where we just did a study about the police violence here, We just did a study, and I was like, oh my goodness, they've done another study. They studied the study that they did 10 years ago about the study that they did 20 years ago. They just keep studying studies. And I thought, okay, that's jazz hands. You know, I'm old enough to realize what I'm seeing. And I'm like, that's not the real work. So stuff like this is the real work for a large age group. You can bring children to this and then have the discussion. If you're a skater and you're in an elitist world, you can come for the beauty of skating and have that discussion internally. You don't even have to have it with people in the space. You can leave the space and keep this to yourself and then go home, but you will be left with the pieces you need to really have the real conversations. That's what this work does. It really gives you enough to feel, if you want to feel it in the presence of other people, and that's cleansing for you, then you can let that happen there because it's a safe space. Sandra Richardson, who facilitates some of the post-show discussions, is really careful and loving about people who want to stay and explore that more. That's one of the other things I love about Brownbody is the aftercare. I mean, it's a real well thought, well cared for way of bringing what we all really, really need right now, which is truth. And Brownbody is a loving way to do that. So, yeah.
We do have a question from our online audience from Dr. Michelle Gibbs. She asks, given how personal this work is for all of you, you've commented on subverting racism and the spirit of phenomenal Blackness that compels your work. What's next for Brownbody? How will your work continue to grow, and what can we do to support you? That's so. Who wants to start?
Okay. Next for Brownbody. Such a beautiful question. Thank you for that. So what's next? Well, this fall we'll have another session of our donation-based learned escape. We are working towards we are trying very hard. Getting ice time is challenging. There are so many, different groups that, need the ice from, during certain times of the day, certain times of the year. And so it's been a big challenge for us to get consistent ice time, for our program. And so we want to explore the ability possibly of becoming an anchor tenant at one of the local rinks. So we'll see if that is kind of pride as it's kept. I don't know if I should have said that, but I said it. Putting it out there. We also are, of course, fundraising is a nonstop, consistent thing. We want to build up our reserves. We want to, thinking long term, it would be amazing to have an endowment. I myself, Karen here is Karen Wilson is in our, she's our admin operations coordinator and our logistics director. And so we all, it's definitely a village effort, and we all spend a lot of time on building our infrastructure. And one of those key components is grant writing. So yes, spend a ton of time writing grants. And in terms of artistically, we actually are starting the process of writing some grants for another work that I actually am not going to spill the beans on that work, but we're looking at maybe 2024, around there. Just starting the work, starting a series of residencies, starting to do the research. So yeah, so that's kind of what, and in terms of how to support, definitely check out brownbody.org. We have information. We graciously accept donations. And so folks can donate there. We also, all of the information for the performance is on our website. And yeah, come this weekend. That's a really powerful and beautiful way to support. We want to see you. We want to meet you. We want to, we learn a lot every time we engage, interact with folks that come to our performances. And we learn a lot about how the work is impacting people. So come to the performance. That is a big, huge way to support. And because we are able to do performances kind of every other year, the next one probably won't be for another couple of years. So it's definitely something not to miss. Yes, definitely. It's right on the homepage. If you go to brownbody.org, you'll see a link for this event. That will take you to our events page. And you can purchase tickets. There's additional information on the work and on the performance. It's June 3rd and 4th, 7:30 both evenings, and then there's a 2 o'clock matinee performance on Saturday, June 4th. And also, thank you. You're so good at this. You can also walk up and get tips. We do offer if there are any financial accessibility challenges, there's a phone number and an email address. Please contact us. We are happy to offer a discount code. But yes, you can walk up on the day of and purchase tickets. Thank you. Yes, please bring a winter coat, hats, gloves, boots, scarves. We are at Highland Ice Arena, which is a really wonderful rink, but it is cold. And we were there all day today. I am still cold. So still shivering, but yes, for real. Not just a light jacket, like your winter parka, bring that.
Wanted to make sure. Yes, we have a question over here. I'm going to bring the microphone over.
Can you talk more about the Learn to Skate program? And given what you've been saying about your work, that I imagine it's more than learning technically how to skate. So how are you interacting with young people and what's going on?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I love talking about our Learn to Skate program, and I actually should probably turn the mic over to Lisa. But our Learn to Skate program is really about creating a welcoming space in an ice arena. I cannot tell you, and this still happens to this day, there are times we are in the rink and the next users, the next groups come in and they come into a sea of black and brownness and they are caught off guard and they are giving us looks. They're just like, you know, what's going on? Or there are times when we're coming in, because we come in early to set up, and the previous groups are, you know, they see us coming and setting up our signage and they, you know, and they are also caught off guard. And sometimes the looks are not like, oh, you know, but they're like, why are you here? You are not supposed to be here. So originally my goal with our Learn to Skate program was to really create an environment where no Black or brown child has to experience that. And so we've even played with like reserving, you know, an additional 15 to 30 minutes on the front end, on the back end, and minimize, you know, that kind of experience. But you know, we can't always do that. So our Learn to Skate program, it's like I said, it's really about creating a welcoming environment. Also, incorporating, you know, I grew up in United States figure skating, Learn to Skate, and it's all about, you know, how you glide on one foot, do a dip, and swivel, or, you know, whatever. And but there wasn't really like, this is how you get in touch with your spine. Let's do some roll downs. Let's actually, you of the movement possibilities of our bodies. So we've incorporated some of those elements into the curriculum. And then last thing I'm going to say, just creating a space that is predominantly Black and Brown. We've received a lot of feedback on our surveys, is really profound for folks, especially in Minnesota. And creating a space where people are not asked, unspokenly asked to understand who they are through the lens of whiteness has been, again, from our surveys, has really been important. And so, yes, people are learning how to skate and glide and balance and all that, but more importantly, really what is significant. But I would love to turn the mic over to Clarence and Karen to see what else you'd like to add.
Turns over the. Just one of the things that's really remarkable about it is, when you're not familiar with being on ice and you're just learning, it can be really frustrating and a challenge. And I am always surprised at how much fun and enjoyment people get, even though they're totally frustrated and I can't figure out how to do this, and I'm falling down, or I'm afraid I'm going to fall down. I mean, people are terrified of falling down. It really isn't that bad, but it is scary. But people will say, "Oh, I had so much fun and I enjoyed it so much." I don't understand that. I mean, I guess I do, but it sort of speaks to the power of a couple of things. One, what Brownbody is doing, the space that's created. And two, ice is wonderful. Skating on ice is wonderful. One of the biggest joys I have is seeing a kid who is enjoying themselves on the ice and moving them across, and living in their body in that way. So, I mean, that's what I see. I am also frustrated in my own ability as an instructor to convey the knowledge and their limitations, because some of it is like learning body knowledge. What does my body do? Where's the balance? You can't teach that. You have to feel it and learn it and sort of develop the muscles to do it. So someone's not just going to pop out there and be ready to go, but still that's gratifying. So I have what? Adults, yes, yeah. So and that's true of the kids and the adults. And the adults are the ones who are there's this one story. I know we need to wrap up because this is getting long, but there was this little girl, probably 6 years old, and she spent an entire lesson trying to get up on her skates off of the ice, from sitting down to get up. Took her the entire time, and I thought, she's never going to come back. This is so much work and suffering. And but what was cool is her family was there. Sometimes you worry about parents trying to be the extra coach or something like that. But they were there, and they didn't like, "Oh, I'm going to help you up," or they didn't criticize. They just cheered her on. She spent the whole lesson trying to, and finally at the end, she got up, and that was enough. She came back, and she had fun. And she's not a world-class figure skater or anything like that, but it's like, just to be able to do that, there was a space for her to do that, and that meant everything. I thought, oh goodness, I failed as an instructor, and the parents are probably saying, what is he doing? And it's like, no, they all came back, and she was having fun. Yeah. So with that, I want to thank all of you for being here. I can't wait to see you on the ice, and I'll jealous, one, that you're on the ice, and two, that I can't do the things But I will enjoy it immensely. Thanks for joining us online, and hopefully we'll see you at, I want to call it Schultz again, which is fine, but the Highland Park Arena on Snelling at the Ford Parkway. And yeah, and until next time, thank you.